in 1981, I was making friends with a great astrologer, Jim Lewis, and we were looking through the ephemeris, the listing of planets, right? And he said, whoa, look at 2020. Oh my God, it's the age of Capricorn. And we go, oh. And we both said, we wonder what form the cauldron of death and rebirth will take, do you suppose? Ah, well, so it's many, of course, and it's all one story, which is part of the, Bioneer's tracking. It's all related, no isolated crises, crisis of isolation, there we go. So the second century medical writers wrote that pandemics occur when tyrants are in power. We go, oh, alrighty, okay. So there's many cauldrons, right? There's the cauldron of the earth burning. There's the pandemic cauldron, which is, how do we cooperate, and how have humans cooperated with pandemics? Well, not very well, but for 2,000 years, right? and I love in Barbara Tuchman's book, Distant Mirror on the 14th Century, she said the saying was that none of the village idiots got infected. And as an astrologer friend of mine said, well, we're all safe here then. But it is the dynamic of, contagion spreads on the wings of fear is a saying. However, we're also in this maelstrom of crackpot theories and all kinds of things, so we want our standards of discernment. So boundaries are good. And we're all assigned the task of, what is it to be a good citizen globally, on this earth. And astrology is such a wonderful language of that in which, so much guiding wisdom has been embedded, right? These symbolic languages of collaborative kinship, and so Aquarius is our interior community and our external community, and then our external community of all beings, and it's called ruled by antique language, Saturn, boundaries and constraint, and Uranus, freedom, trickster, ingenuity, and it's always a dance, right? So the crazy, people are like, no masks, whatever. And I go, well, it's like when I went to pick up my puppies, great little beings, and they'd never had a leash on, right? And when I put the leash on, like all the light went out of their eyes, and they're like, ooh. And I had to give them a story. I go, no, it's a constraint that's going to lead to greater freedom. And they're like, oh, we're okay with that, right? So everybody needs a story, the dogs and the everything, the stories, the whatever. And, so that's what I'm kind of putting out, going, it's a constraint that leads to greater community well-being. Come on, team, right? And so this introversion, and of course, America is now a pariah nation, right? Trump's built a wall around us and we get to pay for it. But even if this weren't, right, and I do approve of flying across the country to go to the ocean. I do. But in kind of putting our, like different groups and festivals and whatnot had said, come in October. And it's like, no, I think it's good to have nothing externally demanding at this point. So yeah, but story crafting. So many planets representing parts of our psyche are, inward, retrograde now, retrograde, right through the election. So even if it weren't, if we were a responsive race, we would go time for introspection, clarity, pulling in, dedication. What a good idea to gather our strategy wits, right? So yeah. So I remember 1981 Jim Lewis saying that thing, and then I excuse me, I also remember 2016, when as part of Pacifica's reporting team and my own Coyote Network News, I went to both conventions, and I remember stepping out of the Republican convention where I had a pretty interesting time. I mean, testing this thing about crossing borders and spiraling out of polarity. And one-on-one, I found the Republicans more playful than the Democrats in a weird way.
Wow.
Well, it's the confidence. I found this in a weird way. The confidence of conservatives, educated conservatives, really, allows them to actually have a conversation. Whereas some kind of muggle liberals so worried that they would look silly to Harvard, you know, it's like, no, can't engage in metaphysics. But so one-on-one, the Republican convention was, you know, worthy play and great trickster training in the streets. I want to come back to that. But as a group, it was like Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. I mean, it was mob mind. And when I left, I knew what was going to happen, and I sank to my knees under the stars, and I was like, oh God, we're getting smoked on what should be our strong suit, the power of story and the power of symbols. And it was like, and Hillary has no story craft. Oh no, we're going to get, because Trump was saying, I will give to you your greatest dream you've had since you were born. And see, the model is because of our mythological illiteracy that we want to become literate. You know, so the Venus, we know that cultures symbolically embedded their science in their myths and fairy tales. So the Inanna myth is the Venus astronomical cycle. And so Venus will be the evening star for 9 months-ish, you know, as she was in the spring for us. And then she gets so close to the sun that we don't see her, called Venus going to the underworld. And then she rises, it's called the heliacal rise of Venus as the morning star. That's what you could see at 4:47 in the morning. Ah, so bright, she's back. And all cultures observe this cycle. In the West, it's Inanna. In Mesoamerica, it's Quetzalcoatl. And the Quetzalcoatl myth is that Quetzalcoatl is a pretty okay leader, and then Tezcatlipoca, the Lord of, I'll help you spell that, right? The Lord of the smoking mirror comes to him with the whispers of corruption, right? And says, you're getting old, you need this and that, and, you know, rules don't apply to you, and, you know, make a deal with Monsanto. And so Quetzalcoatl does all kinds of horrible things, and he wakes up feeling terrible, and sails away, right, going to the underworld. And in Mayan or Mesoamerican, it would be understood this is the time to reinvent leadership. It's become corrupt, it's gone away. And it was a horrible quirk that on the heliacal rise moment, when Quetzalcoatl was to return, that's when Cortez arrived. And they mistook the man for a god. And it's like, oh, no. And during the Republican convention, we were in that cycle, you know, and they mistook Trump for Quetzalcoatl. And it's like, no, it's a myth. It's a metaphor that's meant to be in all of us. Oh, no. But you could feel that, right? And so that's why, you know, mythological literacy is important, going, this is what, no, not a human. No, it's to be born in each person's heart. There we go. But also in the West, you know, Inanna, the myth from 3,500 years ago, you know, and anybody who is anybody goes to the underworld, and we're all in the underworld in our own way. And so the rape and kidnapping motifs are way late. It was always an initiatory descent. You know, at the Eleusinian Mysteries, everybody saw Persephone having gone down a maiden, returning a bleeping initiated queen. Just poof. Same deal. A puer boy, even if he's 60, you know, would go down into the underworld to scrape off, you know, the immaturity and arise a wizard, right? So we're all in this now, right? I mean, it's like, all right, scrape off all the things, the underworld spa service, and so, but in the Inanna myth, so she goes to the underworld, many versions of how and why, and it's very rich. But she returns, right, the heliacal rise, And that's when she becomes a trickster, right? And you may have heard me say this because I love it so much, but it's where we are in the cycle now. And the Sumerian poetry, very trippy, says she's recovering from her ordeal, and one day she's contemplating the wonders of her own vulva, going, it's fantastic to be a woman, even if you don't have a guy, it's just really great. And that's when here comes trickster Uranus ingenuity, the idea into her receptive vulva realm, right? Which is, it's all kind of being staged now, really, in a great way. She is awakened by a trickster impulse that's going to be good for everybody. And she goes, I know, for my overland adventure, I'm going to rescue human culture. And human culture has been stolen by Enki, the god of wisdom, who has become a tyrant, very sophisticated of the Sumerians, to remind us anyone unchallenged, right? Trickster challenges will become tyrannical. Harvard, the thing, gurus, anybody, right? So the trickster service is to playfully challenge with the dedication to be liberating, ideally, right? So Inanna and her best girlfriend, they sail to Enki's island, and being a Venusian liberating trickster, she doesn't go grr, right? She gets Enki drunk on beauty and poetry. And as he gets drunk on beauty and poetry, he gives back to her these parts of human culture called mies. And it's also very important that the Sumerians are so guiding, because everything's trying to help us out now. They say when Enki stole culture, he left empty celebrity baubles in its place. Pretty much like that. It's very clever, toxic mimics, right? So anyway, so Inanna gets him drunk. He gives back to her, astronomy, astrology, writing, science, real estate, whatever. She puts it all in her boat and sets sail with her friend, her little woven round coracle. And Enki wakes up in the morning and goes, where's human culture? I know I left it here somewhere. And his assistant says, you got drunk. You got out drunk. And there's Inanna, Venus, us, may it be, on the horizon in her little coracle. So he does send demons after her. But she's so exhilarated by the friendship and the triumph and whatever that she fends them off with alacrity. And that's how Venus, Inanna, brings culture back to humans, and then they can have a wise renaissance of cooperating with nature. Right? So that's the 3,500-year-old myth now. I mean, everything reporting in. And so in like a myth or a dream, we get to be all the characters. There's an Enki part of all of us that's like, certainty, knows best. I will hoard this over here, and I think, excuse me, I'm choked up by the Inanna myth. Here, more coffee, but I think there's the horrific and beautiful altruism of so many now, on the front lines and doing so much good and so much suffering. I saw this great kung fu movie, Judge D and the Heavenly Kings, and it was like, oh, well, whatever. But then it was fabulous at the end. Let me see, actually, I think I even have my notes from it, because it's like, you never know, these unexpected sources of whatever. So it was a kung fu movie, and I'm like, whatever. But then deep trickster redemption at the end. I really, the Taoist, authentic Taoist with his humble slippers arrives and said, hell is full of suffering souls, so enlightenment can wait. And it's the demons and the bad humans and the scary murderous beings are there, and the Taoist is very kind of calm, and the evil bad villain, throws this thing in a prison, surrounds the Taoist's head, and immediately there's an iron prison around all of the Dementor's head too, and and the Taoist said, hatred is endless. Life is infinite and precious. Why would we allow hatred to contaminate it? Inner demons urge us to, expel them from our hearts and the weapon will open. And it's this great moment where the demons and the bad guys fall to their knees in remorse, right? And the prisons leap off of their heads. Anyway, it's just really great. Expel them from our hearts and the weapon will fall open. So it's like, thank you, Kung Fu movie, wisdom reporting in from everywhere. And that's kind of the trickster dynamic, is it's like the trickster part of all of us called to engagement is interested in liberating, women, men, the land, liberating the entire circumstance, right? Not counting on it, but willing. And so that was such a great smoke and animation of that. And then the Taoist also said, it's a great thing. Well, I don't have the exact thing, but he says, I didn't realize the situation was so dangerous. Sorry, I'm late. I'm like, right. Come on, we need help. We've really messed up. Come on in, but again, these kind of crucial lessons and the evolutionary spookiness is the Dementors are just so reliably, horrifically cruel and churlish, monstrosities running on cruelty, and they do horrible things which make us, but they feed on polarity, right? They feed on the polarity. So how shall we spiral? And I think that's where all of our inner dedication, and humility is required. Just even in a simple way, the inward dedication magnetizes the outward path, just even, dance us into place where we can do the most good, have the most fun, contribute our gifts to the community in a way that is replenishing. That'll do. I think that'll do. So, right. So, feel free to guide.
I'm like, this is amazing.
I can keep rambling. So my love, right, and what I'm doing increasingly more is language crafting for individuals, for groups, for nonprofits, for whatever. Going, language is magic. It's one of the great skills of intimate collaboration. If we have a name, we have a relationship, and anything we can name, we can. So I'm with self and others interested in how we can unbespell ourselves, and it's like I do a lot of, work when there were, huge gatherings. Well, there are huge gatherings. I'm sort of sitting those out going, yes, I have my fill of tear gas. I thank you for carrying on, full woofy support, whatever we can do from our different assignments, but a lot of times, and the Women's March, really, really great. And on the stage, the language is, let's support these people's long, hard struggle. I go, I want to support their effective dedication, right? Because whatever we say, we got more of. It's like, they want more struggle. It's like, no, we want effective dedication, just to play. And working with so many people, I do personal consultings and business and everything consultings. And so people go, well, I've been struggling with this issue for years. And I go, well, let's see what it feels like if we take the word struggle and put it into the giant death rebirth cauldron available to us all and replace it with the word dancing. I've been dancing with this issue for years. And it's like, oh, well, then you can spiral. Then, as opposed to dun, 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 right. And so I'm also, we have these obedience memes. I'm really interested in how prison can masquerade as freedom because everybody's so interested in not being snookered. So, the word impact is a pandemic, right? Impact investing and want to impact. And I go, really? You want to have a short, violent encounter? Is that what you're up to? How about a long, curvy influence? Influential. Influence is a word that comes from astrology, actually. It's the inflowing, of the guiding intelligence, right? So how about influence? And it's just autonomy is a sacrament, and I like to say to myself and others, Uranus trickster says, we are big forces of nature's intelligence dancing with you personally and collectively. We don't care what you do. We care the manner in which you do it, that it come from freedom and choice as opposed to conditioned snookering, right? So I'm just, so the lineup that Jim Lewis was referring to in 81 that we is what's called the Saturn, Pluto, the cauldron of death and rebirth, Jupiter, teasing all knowledge, all practices into, well, practices actually. Everything we've ever practiced, every word or whatever in the underworld is where you go, well, let's work this. Let's do this thing. Magic's a willingness to cooperate with everything, not condone, right? But to dance and spiral with the thing. And redemption lies in brewing medicine for others, right? So it's like, all right, let's play with this thing here. And so yeah, and it's challenging because I don't want to impose, finger wagging on people's finger wagging or whatever. But so it's if people want to woof want to play, it's like, all right, language crafting, and that's our metaphors. When people say, I'm so sick and tired of this administration, it's like, oh no, don't do that. No sense doing their work for them. I'm so aroused into ingenious action. It's like, let's, not sick and tired into the cauldron. So Pluto gives us this great cauldron of death and rebirth, and it's only good for everything to get thrown in. I think it's good for festivals to redesign themselves and for conferences. Pioneers, festival into the cauldron, and what shall we ladle out? But also everything into the cauldron, tired language. Trickster says there's no prison for the unexpected. I've test driven these things. I know it's true. When we use expected language, there's already a prison waiting for it. But the original language liberates everybody into a fresh conversation. And I think talking across borders to people that we compost contempt, right? We just got to compost contempt. Before conversation can happen, and then play. Woof want to play. And sometimes people don't, but sometimes they do. And I remember I was talking to a Trump supporter guy and going, oh, and so then I said, well, what's your definition of the purpose of government? And he's like, oh, so if we ask, you're unexpected. It only takes, one person to change the circle into like, whoa. And then I said, well, let's just chant it together. The purpose of government is to, and we both said together, protect the Commonwealth. He said it. And I was like, damn, let's quit now. Well, we're ahead. That's good. That was really good. I'll be going swimming now. There we go. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this dance. Right. And so our repertoire of responses and fresh responses, and our that everything be critique, diving deep into the funky horror, with liberating blessing. But it doesn't have to be boring, right? It can be spicy and sizzly and dark humored, but with a fundamental liberating wish. So one of the things I play with, in different venues, online things, I have a Monday Night Trickster Council and different venues and language crafting things and whatever is, something I was about to say. Oh, well, all right. So, well, let me pause and let me pause. What was I about to say? I don't know.
Well, something that's coming up in the Monday night, something that you've been playing with online, and it was actually a question that was emerging. And so I think this is what you were naturally going to dive into, if I'm right, but we'll see, which is that I'm curious, when you are face to face with someone, like at the Republican convention, it seems like the the possibility for play is so alive. But sometimes in the online spaces, we can just be so hostile to one another, and the energetic is different. So I'm so curious, in this time of the pandemic, how do you do Wolf Wolf Want to Play?
Right. No, that's good. Right. And it's deep practice, right? Because the comment section is like the lower astral of human devolution often. And you can feel, in social media, because I do Facebook and Twitter, but you can feel the collective weather going, oh, it's changing now. It's getting very polar, back away from the screen. No, don't react, respond. Right. But don't react to that, or right. And we all blow it. Going, oh, and Trickster, says sometimes you have to cross the line to know where it is, right? But I've been, practicing, right? And so sometimes when, I'm honing, but then aspiring to go, may it be spicy, but fundamentally liberating. Like somebody was, I just doing whatever, and I was like, and they're like, oh, I can't remember exactly the precise, but I was like playing with their words, going, then may a cheerful Gothic wind emerge from the underworld and sweep all the fuzzy thinking out of your brain and leave you with linguistic vitality, right? And they were like, oh, that's really cool. So when people take it, it's like when you cross the line, and then people are like, woof woof, it's like, that's the best. That's just, and sometimes, and then also really practicing, because, I know a lot of sane people who are just piling on what I think of as crackpot. I'm going to use that word, crackpot videos. And I was like, oh, Jesus, do I just block them or whatever? And it's like, no, well, let's see, let's practice. And then there's, the trick looks for an opening, somebody who was like, whatever, said, just was like, blah, 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 and, the virus is a hoax, and knows, it's like, and then they mentioned some astrology thing that they were born with Jupiter in Cancer. I'm like, oh, first, what I've learned in toxic situations, online and off, is there is no communication or conversation possible while there's condescension or contempt, right? And condescending means we all go down together, and it's actually a quite colonial, tyrannical thing, no matter how hip we think we are. So I do aspire, before the reaction, to, we all have a harumphitude composter, like compost harumphitude, aspire to be like the Taoist, hell is full of suffering, enlightenment can wait, and then proceed. So with this little opening, I go, Jupiter in Cancer, it's called exalted, because Cancer is providing nourishment and Jupiter is stories. And in the Arabian Nights, it says people need stories more than they need bread. And the person was like, yes, that's so important in my life. And we were in a different conversation. We were no longer, it's a hoax. We were leaving the hoax situation, and it starts to come in again, like with the guy. I go, we've been having an excellent time. I'm going to back away now. We've been getting on so well. I'm going to draw the curtain of discretion while you rant about, the thing. Right. And so finding that spiral, and I think it's really important for our progressive team or whatever, because there's a lot of sneaky condescension.
Oh my God.
If you knew what I knew, you would know there's no hope and it's all corrupt. It's like, we do know what you do and more, but we're not bleeping muggles, you condescending dingbat. Let me compost my harumphitude. Right. So so there's a lot of and I step in a spicy way. Somebody was pontificating because, again, it's dodgy, right? Somebody was, a progressive was like, and it's terrible, and no, you can't vote for Biden, and people knew it, whatever it was, and it's the system that's corrupt, and unless you know that, what's the thing, then nothing. And I go, well, we do know that, you know, and there's a flag on that play, projectile platitudes, condescending imposition, inadvertent support of tyranny and colonialism, 5-yard penalty, declined, ball back in play. Right. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I don't know how that person took it, but a lot of other people were like, "Yes, thank you, that's really good." Okay, so we do want to have fun with it, and it can be a little dodgy, but I think it's you know, everybody's got their different style, and we're all honing, but I like the criterion, you know, in this death rebirth cauldron. Everything can be imprisoning or liberating. Everything. You know, astrology, you know, and that's why we find our team. You know, I love Renaissance astrologer Marsilio Ficino. You know, we find our allies in history, and it's a good time to do that, going, help us. And I love him because he was always berating the astrologers of Florence for creating a priesthood. You know, may I buy real estate? You know, yes, you may. Well, so, and this is really important, the imprisoning or liberating quality of everything. It's a Saturn theme, meaning we are any liberating teaching, everything into the cauldron, all teachings, all festivals, all everything going, all right. And the criterion for ladling out is, does it guide people to their own autonomy? Is it equal Mars and Venus, equal humans and the rest of our kin on this planet? Is playful truth-saying welcome? Is trickster disruption welcome? Yes, we ladle it out. No, we put it back in for another round of bubbling. Right? It's not adequate if it doesn't meet those criterion, I feel. You know, and so the Saturn model, does it guide people to their own autonomy? No priesthood. No priesthood, right? Priesthood, very sneaky. You know, I mean, we've had it for, you know, whatever. And I think it's also part of, like, when did humans make the underworld a bad place? Because it's just soil. And initiatory depth and introspection, that modern culture is like, no, not that, not introspection. Okay. And I think we have to go really far back to when did humans make the underworld a bad place. We have to go back to when there's a priesthood, right? When our connection to the big wolf is imprisoned into only through a priesthood which feeds on fear. So I think that's when we became fear-based, like, oh, underworld, dark feminine, you know. I love Neil Douglas Klatt's Aramaic scholar saying the Aramaic, the vernacular that Jesus would have spoken, says, when Jesus says, be as gentle as doves and as wise as serpents, he said that the word he uses for serpent is the same word for Eve and wisdom. Eve, wisdom, serpent, same word. And I go, so all subjugation of the earth and women and religious wars is a translation error? And he goes, yeah, intentional translation error, but it's like, oh, Eve, wisdom, serpent, right? It's like person, man, woman, you know, camera, TV. No, Eve, wisdom, serpent. You know, I mean, I think we got it. We can animate these chants again. Eve, wisdom, serpent, something. Pick another one. Eve, wisdom, serpent. Yep. Memory. So the no priesthood, I think, is important. So that's why this beautiful language that people think of as constraining, but it's actually liberating, is about insourcing everything we've outsourced, right? So Saturn represents authority, autonomy, right? So we tend to give that away to father and to leaders and to competent people and to, you know, whatever. But it's time, this introspection is like, everybody inhale one's own autonomy, authority. You know, autonomy is a sacrament, right? It's our little goat. It's our Saturn goat, right? To our hara. I mean, and we're all working on this forever kind of thing. Just because authority contains the word author, and is related to the word authentic,
Mm.
which is our greatest protection in the underworld. And it says either we're inhaling our authority or the world is authoritarian, right? So it's for everybody to inhale Saturn, 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 boundaries, boundaries, yes, masks and distance, respect, animals and fish, social distance. In pandemics, they do. Little fish going, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to go over here. Thank you, says the school. It's like this is not some human thing. Now, with conspiracies, it's challenging. I mean, there are true conspiracies, of course, and we don't want the crackpot ones to discredit the real ones because there's a lot to track. The private outsourcing of stormtroopers, I mean, there's a lot of important things to know, and that's why how do we journey into the underworld with a jaunty heart, right? It's good to have a team, but that's why the thing I always use, these are all crucial parts of my magic backpack, Inanna and detective novels, myths, fairy tales, detective novels. These all live in our mythic DNA, right? It's like the Inanna myth. We know it's a crisis of leadership, not. So somebody was we were playing backstage before a presenting thing, and he said, well, and of course, and everybody's looking to that one savior, and of course that is. And I said, yes, it's Keanu Reeves, right? That's why the Matrix movies were a setup for Trump. Anyway, I just had to say it because I find the Matrix movies really imprisoning, and I go, oh, it's prison masquerading in his freedom, because it's got the savior is this white boy and it's Keanu Reeves. I'm like, no, right? So it's still feeding. I like the image of God as the Santhera, the Cuban Santhera in the kitchen. That was a good part of the movie, but otherwise people were snookered. And so inhaling authority. Okay. So myths, fairy tales, detective novels, you've probably heard me say this too, but I use it all the time with enthusiasm. So wondering what the oldest detective novels, crime fiction is, which is myths and fairy tales are that, and it is 231 BC in China on bamboo paper are the earliest detective novels, which like everything are pitching to us, right? And everything wants to be translated into a fresh guiding vernacular now, and for everybody to think of what do they love in terms of pragmatic teaching and science and myth, and how to give it a fresh expression with a liberating heart to fuel it. So in the detective novels from 231 BC, they say, the purpose of the magistrate is to dive into the underworld in order to restore human affairs to be in accord with the mandate of heaven and earth. And they go, that's it. That's it. And they said, if you're going to do that, and we're all kind of assigned that, there's some helpful hints. They go, it's good to have a buddy or two with whom to cheat death and have dark humor. Wow. And that's what we want, because Jupiter's saying, what do you need for a wealthy life? It's like a couple of buddies who we know are seeing what we're seeing, and so it makes it funny rather than alienating, and that detective novel bravado of banter. Banter, again, Wendell Berry says, be jaunty even though fully informed, right? So to descend into the underworld with a buddy or two. And then they say, in 231 BC, and to us, greatest protection in the underworld is authenticity. Now we're back to Saturn, which has to do with outsourced leadership and internal autonomy authority, right? And that's part of the value of this time, going, to whom and what have we outsourced authority for collective well-being, and how do we inhale that back in? And using everything, all forms of pragmatic mysticism. And so they said about authenticity, they said, if you're authentic, which is it's an all of us kind of a thing we're working on, aspiring forever, that our inside and our outside match. They say, if you are authentic, then here's what will happen. Bad people will come up and go, I was going to rob you and kill you, but I can sense that you're authentic. So I want to join your team, but I have underworld skills you will need. And I find this so pertinent to us right now. We're in a great magnetizing, invitational recruiting drive. Come on over. And I talk to a lot of whistleblowers, right, who are like, for 40 years we did terrible things in the NSA, but now we want to be good. And it's like, welcome. We, in the spirit of detective novels, we will keep a crafty eye on you because we because we know that your story and our story might not completely match down the line. Like there's a lot of Republicans who are moderately sane now, and we go, welcome. And we'll, we're agreeing about these things, but we're savvy, right? And so there's that, the detective novel model. Come on over and cahoot, because if the Dementors, and part of what I knew what was going to happen after the Republican convention in 2016. Is that they were, permission, inviting the worst aspects into collective mob mind, and it's like, oh, dangerous, very dangerous. So rather than contribute, our task is to invite the best, come on over with a, here we got important, good thing. We need the awakened imagination and ingenuity of everybody. It's a collective calling, and that's why, when I left the Republican convention sinking to my knees, I thought of, we think of all of our mentors. And I thought of my kind of esoteric mentor in the 40s in England, Dion Fortune, and many great things. But so when I was a little occult student, 17, 18, I read all of her stuff, and there's a book called The Magical Battle of Britain. So the thought of her going, we need to activate everything. So she was a pragmatic mystic. She said the purpose of ritual magic is to spiral into group mind, expanded wisdom, and tolerance. And in World War II, the British government engaged her and the really crafted, learned ritual esotericists to do pragmatic mysticism to protect England from the Nazis, and they did. And so I read that book a long time ago, and I thought, oh, this is really important. We need everything. And so, guided by some Twitter augury, somebody randomly said, reach for the book nearest you and turn to page 47. I go, okay. Well, I slightly cheated. It's like, it's the book second over, because we're not obedient. We're trickster, not obedient. Oh, wait, I have it here. But I've only been on page 47 for the last, month, really. It's just because it's just pretty nutrient. And I go, all right, Dion. So she's writing this when the bombs are falling, and they're doing it by mail, right? They're mailing ritual instructions to all the participants in England, right? So we've got Zoom, for God's sake, But she said, if we were unable to maintain an atmosphere of serenity in our own headquarters, how could we then have hope to be a nucleus of stability for the group soul of the nation? I'm like, now we're talking, right? It's like, let's up our game. The group soul of the nation. Anything that has a word is a participatory ally. The group soul of the nation. Yeah, let's talk to that. And then she said, the stability and serenity, meditation and things, maintaining, again, she's writing this in the early 40s, bombs are falling, to allow us each to dedicate to being a nuclei of stability in a profoundly disturbed world. It's like, thank you, Dion. Now, she was not a barrel of laughs, right? I mean, I want to tricksterize everything, but everything that comes to us going, that's great, and how could we make it a little more playful? But so she said the stability also is in part due to the power of steady meditation to neutralize incoordinated vibrations. And it's also no doubt due to our certainty of the desirable outcome of the war, right? Even as the bombs are falling, they're like, no, and I think that's for all of us now, to animate in detail the vision, right? Which has a magnetic field as well as a pragmatic, we do everything we can to make it real and then invite in mojo. There was a great neurological study I ran across in my notes that said, when we commune with an invisible anything, it's the same in our brain as talking to a good friend in the kitchen. And I go, oh, I love that. This is very good news. To our brain is democratic. Invisible and visible are equally real to our brain. And I go, fabulous. Thank you. So what she said is, okay, so our certainty of the desirable outcome of the war. Horrible, horrible. And then she said, I just felt like this metaphor, because the power of extended vision, can see how things are going on the inner planes of causation, right? It's wonderful, antique, occult, kind of British language talk, but cute. And then she said, this is not prophecy in the ordinary sense of the word, but just as a woman on a high cliff can see a ship approaching the shore sooner than those on the beach. I love that image. I find it very moving. Okay, so when we are able to perceive conditions, we can see the advent of desirable events sooner than those on the beach. Isn't that a great image?
That's so beautiful, Carolyn. I feel like you're standing on the high cliff. What is your vision for 2021?
What? No. I'm going to spiral out of that one because Neptune says, the modern addiction to certainty, that's blown to hell, and there is no mystery. I mean, there is no certainty. But we're all crafting this. However, now I'm very enchanted by my friend Deborah Felmuth, the longtime ally, she who lives in Syria and Vermont, right there. She's a cross-pollinating agent between, Arabic world and modern. So we did a really pretty great, I think, summer solstice online, audio only, because she's like, everybody's tired of Zoom. Let's just do invisible. And it's like, it was really good. But but I loved one of the great guiding things she said. She said, in Western culture, and especially American, the future's in front of us. There it is. In the past, in back of us. Who cares, right? And she goes, in Arabic culture, it's the reverse, right? We love these changes. We are gazing at the past before us. And the future is an invisible mystery behind us. And the future is crafted with words and stuff. The future is crafted as we gaze at the caravan of our past mentors. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's really great. So, yeah, because all this time, especially people who think astrology is nonsense, are like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I go, that's just really not the question. What's available for us to cooperate with? And certainly Janine Benyus and biomimicry and making wheel and deal contracts, experimental contracts backstage with what we love is definitely the way to go. And everything that's ever been important to us teased into application. So a million animal years ago, when I began living with actual coyote, Stella Coyote, and was interviewing a Lakota elder on radio, and he said, nothing smarter, right? And we Lakota did not hunt alone. Those gifted would go into a reverie, right? Pragmatic mysticism, and they would broker a working alliance across species boundaries. They would broker an alliance with the wolves and coyotes, and we would all hunt together for a season. And if you want to destroy a culture, shame people, and destroy that capacity to imaginatively and then literally, imagination lays the tracks for the reality train, imaginatively then literally form an alliance, and then you can destroy the world. So I'm very keen on that, with Dion Fortune and Lakota and Coyote all brewing in a syncretism. And Edgar Cayce was a really true psychic in the 30s and 40s in America. Befoibled as we all are, but for real. And he predicted in the 40s that, in the early 1970s, the east coast of America would be deluged by a great tidal wave. And what we got was Watergate, right? So sometimes these things can be metaphoric. I'm interested in all in whom it resonates to experiment, believe nothing, entertain possibilities, for people individually and maybe collectively to imaginably go backstage and go, we humans, we have set in motion horrific things and much sadness and suffering and cruelty coming at us. Can we negotiate to make some of it metaphoric, right? If we light the fires in our heart, can we have fewer fires? If we honor water, can we have fewer floods? But it's a Coyote wheel and deal. I learned a lot from Coyote. I learned a lot from Stella. Dogs no shame, coyotes zero shame. All wheel and deal. And this is indigenous voodoo. It's what anthropologist muggles call transactional spirituality, but I think it's really living animism and completely real. It's if this, then this, and the backstage goes, what are you putting on the table? And it's like, so to all of us, like, well, what are we putting on the table? And I've seen people, I have, sometimes access to quirkily, highly placed beings, right? And they're in trouble. And I go, well, you're clean enough. You're cleaner than your opponents and wherever, if you get out of this mess, if Trickster helps you out of this mess, what are you putting on the table? And they were like, oh, this and this, and we'll release these prisoners and we'll do this thing and whatever. And then they get out of trouble and they're like, well, that was just imaginary. It's like, and then they get taken down. I mean, I've seen this a lot. It's like, no, it's for real. And in myself, I go, oh, what did I put on the table? Even in small things, like if my cat comes back, right? I promise to, whatever it is. And it's like, oh, I didn't completely do that. I better, Anyway, so we're all, to be authentic, I can certainly, right. There's a con and a trickster in all of us. And when we don't live up to when we overpromise, but we're all, it's the direction that we're going in. We're all kind of, befoibled in that way. But I think, yeah, so pragmatic mysticism, again, this I think is the sine qua non that can work it, if with all this great knowledge and science and solutions and ingenuity and a call for more, which so moves people. I just so love the Biomimicry Institute and Janine Benyus, because it completely transcends any imprisoning political language, because it's elegant and people, and it's full of our skill set. People don't mind being asked, did you know that the Japanese high-speed bullet train was, disrupting, breaking windows as it entered and left a tunnel, and they went to Janine and the Biomimicry Institute, and she goes, let's look at a kingfisher bird entering water without a splash. And so they redesigned the front of the Japanese high-speed bullet train to be like a kingfisher bird entering water with no disturbance in the field, right? And it's like, oh, let that be one of our qualities too. May we enter into foreign venues, without any disturbance in the field, so stealth. But anyway, but see, everybody who sees that is like, oh, that's beautiful, right? Yes. People love that. We're pattern tracking beings. We love elegance. We have an image of how things should be. And see, the beautiful language of astrology, it doesn't, it exists. We don't need to, it's not something to believe in. It's a language of effective participatory kinship, God damn it. And we have 7 years of Uranus trickster in Taurus, the realm of living participatory animism. Everything's alive, and how shall we cooperate with what we love? If we do this, then how about this? So I think that's, so what do I see? 2021, it's like, okay, let's envision some desirable things, right? Let me see. So part of this beautiful language is to give to each part of our psyche personally and collectively, you know, represented by a planet, the work it does best. And Saturn, authority and boundaries and masks, and I think is least understood. The Saturn part of us is really good at defining things, taking vows, but it's terrible at how. Well, how are we going to do that? And we go, no, how is not Saturn's job. Saturn's job is what? Jupiter and Uranus and chime in and go, we'll do how. I mean, do common sense things, right? But don't let realism be an imaginative impediment. You dedicate, and then Jupiter and Uranus go, we'll do how in a way that makes you bark with laughter. You know, this call and response, like, hello, hello, you know, from the animal emissaries and the plant emissaries, and why the resurgence of psilocybe mushrooms is so important. And when journeying in the underworld, roots, ginger root, rhodiola root, turmeric root, mycelia, mushrooms are guides to the underworld. You know, and Johns Hopkins has so we're in a point right now where science is proving folklore. And, you know, and I love Stamets saying that what Johns Hopkins is coming up with is what people have traditionally known about psilocybe mushrooms, microdose or more, that it calms down the amygdala, right, the flight or fight part of the brain, increases cooperation in all the regions of the brain, and encourages the cultivation of curiosity, kindness, and confidence. And as Stamets says, those are leadership qualities. And it's like, yeah. So we're all like, well, let's define leadership. Let's define purpose of government.
I have a question that's emerging, and if you don't want to, it's personal. So if you
Okay.
don't want to go there, but
Sure.
a lot, as you were speaking a lot through the underworld, just you look so radiant and so healthy and so beautiful and so full of life. And I remember at Pioneers last year, you were going through your cancer treatments.
Yes, very exciting.
And so it seems like that was your own, if I correct me if I'm wrong, journey with the underworld.
Completely.
So what lessons did you learn, and what has come of that?
Oh, so many. Well, you know, humbling, because, you know, you never know, knock on wood, throw salt over your left shoulder, everything. Cause it's like, whoa, you know, and certainly all, there's no security in an isolating story, you know, because people so want to have a story about how that could never happen to them. Right. And it's like, no. And sometimes you draw a bad card, but yeah, it was the basis of my Pioneers talk last October, which is, yeah, cook it into medicine for everybody, which it is, right? And so, yeah, this daunting diagnosis, like, oh no, Joe, you know, this terrible thing. Okay, but magic is a willingness to cooperate with everything. So it's like, okay, well, what is the bleeping story here, right? And that's, you know, what I said at Pioneers. Once I found the story, well, language was really important. Because people were like, oh, we heard you were battling. I'm like, no battle. Every obituary ends with lost their battle. You lose a battle. No battle. It's a dance. It's a cooperative thing. And so I never used the conventional language. You know, I said I have been diagnosed as having inappropriately enthusiastic cells. So my job is to out-enthuse them, right? And that, you know, continues to be a useful thing, right? And then finding the primary metaphor for these inappropriately enthusiastic cells is they have lost the capacity to cooperate, and so have no respect for boundaries. And I go, this is pretty bleep and important in the world. This is a primary metaphor. It's the, you know, colonialism and tyranny and, you know, the C word and the thing and the, you know, and people's and bacteria and the, you know, viruses are a whole other interesting symmetrical thing, right? That's right. But how do we cooperate still is the question, you know, how do we cooperate, you know, and how is that a good thing? And even, you know, noticing, you know, at one point I was washing hands with fear, and it's like, no. You know, how beautiful that soap and water dissolves this thing. It's like, I know about this. I see, panic early to avoid the rush. It's like, you know, for the last year before all this, you know, I wasn't hugging anybody. Like, no, thank you. I I like it anyway. I never liked mandatory hugging. Oh, you meet somebody and hug them. No. But bowing, you know, and a lot of time alone, which, I mean, I go out on the road, but at home it's me and the animals. And so that was like panic early to avoid the rush kind of thing. And then cooperating, going, all right, if this is the primary metaphor, they've lost the capacity to cooperate. Poor things, right? And so I have a wonderful friend, a medical doctor going through a similar daunting diagnosis, really great human, you know. And so we were talking about, well, how do you dance with demons? And how do you turn demons into allies? You know, and it's not a, you know, and so, you know, and so many people, you know, again, they don't, well, everybody's got an opinion, right? You don't need to do that, radiation and chemo, that'll kill you. And it's like, well, yeah, and see, so many people said, I know people who didn't do any of that, right? And who just, you know, CBD and marijuana. I go, I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah.
Crickets. And it's like,
wow.
Nobody could produce a person. And my friend, Dr. Donald Abrams, again, head of integrative oncology at San Francisco, and wrote the book with Dr. Andrew Weil. Those are buddies of mine. So I had the orthodox thing, and then I go, they want me to do this thing. It sounds horrible. And Donald would go, no, that's a good thing. I go, all right, syncretizing. It's like, all right, we're going to use the medical orthodoxy. Because Donald was pretty clear. He said, complementary, not alternative. He said, you know, and this is an ongoing conversation. Nobody wants this story of the orthodox treatment to be true. It's like, no, it can't be true. It's too horrible. And it's like, well, yeah, but you can cooperate with it. And I think it's crucial for our political life right now. It's in a sense saying like, no, not Biden. It's like, well, it's like chemo, you know. Biden's like chemo. You know, how do we cooperate with this thing going, it's our assignment, it'll do, what can we do? Pretty good platform that Bernie and Biden have worked out. As Bernie goes, it's not what we have written, but it's really pretty great. Jay Inslee says it's cool. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, blazing articulate voice of Venus from the underworld. Oh man, impeccable in her coherence and teasing into larger pertinence, being just so deft. Oh, anyway, so we have great teammates, you know, and we just want the magic backup thing. So, yeah, so for me, you know, it's like, no, not resist. And I know a lot of people going through what I do, you know, who didn't make it. And I go, God, what if you went through all this and it didn't work? Oh, that'd be fucking horrible, which is why I knock on wood and throw salt over the shoulder and everything. But yeah, no, and so I had to, I think it is pertinent to us now, because I had to ask the doctors going, wait a minute, what is the story here? What's the strategy here, you know, with the chemo? Because you can't take anything that's good for you, like vitamin C or whatever. I'm like, because as a friend said, because the antioxidants protect everybody. And so I go, so we're going to take everybody to the edge of death and see who comes back. And they're like, yeah, that's our strategy. I'm like, that's ridiculous. All right, I'm game. But somebody, you know, in a chemo booth 2 over died next to me in the thing. And there was this applause, and then this code 99, and then applause. And I said to the nurse, did something good happen? She goes, no, something terrible happened. You know, somebody just coded. And I go, what was the applause? And she said, well, somebody finished their chemo at the same time. It's like, oh, you can't make this up. Life and death, down into the underworld, back out, you know, and think of Bob Marley, and, you know, and there is no isolating, like, oh, well, they died because they ate cake. And it's like, no, just no, we're all in this thing together here. So yeah, so that's where we are right now. It's like, take everything to the edge, as a friend quips, sometimes the healing dose is very close to the lethal dose, right? And we're there, right? And tonic and toxic has everything to do with dosage. It's like saying the truth, or soothsayer has everything to do with timing and motivation, when and why, you know. Anyway, so no, I continue to get a lot out of this adventure, you know, and it is kind of ongoing, but there was I missed some of it in a way, because right up against it, there was a very emphatic guiding hunger intelligence that was like, no, no, yes, and that's, now I'm on my own. So it's like, I do, okay, a little bit, but it was so emphatic. It's like, when you charge a computer and you put the little charger next to it and it goes click, right? So like, I grabbed Paul Stamets through email by the collar, because we're buddies, but he's so famous now he hardly has time. And I go, send me what I need in terms of medicinal mushrooms. He's like, all right, here you go. Yeah. So, and the minute, the like the turkey tail and the Stamets brew and the lion's mane touched my tongue, it was like, yes, yes. And that's why autonomy is a sacrament, because there are many people with very holy, pure diets, right, who would have been bewildered by what worked for me, right? And so, but fortunately I had my friend in Canada going, there are those of us that go that way. It was basically like a hangover diet. We wanted grease and protein. Yeah, and there's people going, no, no, no. I mean, no sugar. Everybody agreed. That was pretty much. But yes, I have lovely, lovely people that I still won't tell them what actually worked, because it's
Right.
like, because they're like, no, no, just no fats, no oils, no, just it's like, no, that's just not doing it. But anyway, but autonomy is a sacrament, and so yeah, wending one's way, and then also, is this liberating or imprisoning? Is this tonic or toxic? And yeah, and then being tricksters. So yes, we're having such fun. I'm going to prove what a trickster I am by lighting one of my 3 cigarettes a day, which I let myself have the whole time. And see, again, with other tricksters, my acupuncture guy, invaluable, and I go, I'm still just smoking 3 cigarettes with a little cannabis, because even the straight doctors were like, smoke more weed. And my acupuncture guy was saying, well, yeah, no, you got to, you don't want to bewilder your familiar spirits. You have to keep it familiar with the usual aromas. I'm like, that's the spirit. And I did lose all my hair. And I know many women who were really forlorn about that. I liked it.
It looked beautiful. Those amazing.
Well, it's come back. I always wanted curly hair, right? This is chemo curls. People say it will go away, and it's like, no, don't go away. No, I'll never cut it. Even if it's straight and then curly. And it's like, oh, I always wanted this. It's the underworld spa service.
Oh my God.
Right, and even bald. I wore Arabic head wraps and stuff, and it was like, all right, for a closer look, here we go. So there. Do you want to?
Well, good, Carolyn. I'm wondering if there's just
wrap up
at the time here. Yeah. Any parting words or thoughts or trickery?
Well, mentors. Again, we're crafting the future by gazing at our mentors. And conjuring the desirable, right? And willing to play. But mentors, nothing, of course, just human. All the beings with whom we have affinity, and just the experiment of being willing to have a heartfelt alliance. And certainly, the Bioneers community and all sane herbalists and people who know, and mycologists and animals and people who live with and study wolves, we want to be humbled. We as a species, humbled by the intelligence of the trees and plants and animals and slime mold, and, going, oh, we are humbled. Our word, human comes from humus, dirt, from which we get humble and humility, right? We're meant to be humble people in the dirt. We're meant to be humbled by our circumstance, not important. And there's importance into the cauldron, specialness into the cauldron, uniqueness out of the cauldron, because unique is liberating. Everybody who's special is kind of a condescending celebrity thing, but unique really encourages everyone to hone their own uniqueness and their own unique relationship with what they love. And I think animism is not a belief, it's a manner of relating with respect. And so everything we encounter along the forest walk or on the beach, you go, hello, brother, sister crab. You know, some of us are trying to be less rude, you know, and we know that you horseshoe crabs have been the same form for 2 million years because you're perfect, you know, and we're really sorry that we've turned you into dog food, you know, and some of us are trying to be, you know, more speed it up, right? Well, what can we form an alliance, you know, and so, and I'll just leave with, I so love Janine Benyus and biomimicry. And the last time I hosted her on the radio, long time, but I asked her, what is this biological term, vertical integrated hierarchy? And she said, oh, it's this beautiful thing. It means that everything in nature contains the plan of the larger thing it's a part of. And this is what makes for nature's ingenuity, resilience, and self-assembling. And I go, oh, that's fabulous. And so she was always happy, very kind for me to take scientific fact and tease it into guiding metaphor, right? So for us now, what it means is, as we inwardly dedicate, it strengthens our outward signal. So we're more likely to be danced into the plan of the larger thing that we're a part of, you know, and it is a renaissance, and Inanna's back, and, you know, who brought what? Who brought what? You know, and let's, yeah, and, you know, woof woof, blessings, Aizan, the Amharic blessing, said reciprocal blessing back and forth for people setting forth on a dangerous, worthy journey, right? You know, Aizan, there we go. So there's that.
Oh my God, thank you. Carolyn, I feel like I was in the audience Friday night at Pioneers.
That's great. You know, and it's always like a, you know, there is, you know, tricks, because I'm like, oh God, what do I have anything to say to Polina? we'll just see. Anyway, yeah. So
I wish we could be here all day.
That's great. Well, you take a swim in the ocean for me, right?
I will send so many blessings while I'm in that water.
Well, the ocean was important. You know, again, you know, just doing these daunting things like, which was arduous, you know, a friend asked me, because it was 5 weeks of radiation, 5 days a week.
Oh my God.
With chemo at the beginning and the end, and then a break, and then massive double chemo every 21 days. So when I was at Pioneers, I was just out, right? So it's like, okay. And in doing my tax returns, I'm like, holy fucking amazing. I was working the whole time. I did radio, it's like, how did I do it? I don't even remember.
I don't even remember.
It's like, God. Yeah, and it's arduous. There's so many people who've been on this adventure, you know, and who sometimes don't know. I mean, you don't know because people were shamed, you know. But I said to my neighbor, I go, day 3 after chemo, is that where you go to the underworld and nobody loves you and you're all alone and you've made very unwise decisions? And she goes, yeah, that's day 3. Right. And I go, all right, so just so you know, the amusement ride is pulling into that. But then when I was in the depths of like, nobody loves me, I've made stupid decisions, I need money, I need help, you know, and then and people were very kind. But I was like, oh no. And there are these house wrens that every year build a nest, you know, outside my window in a little birdhouse. And I was like, oh, I'm all alone. And the 6 new fledglings who just learned to fly lined up on a branch in front of my window going, hello, hello. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. Thank you. That's what I needed. You know, I needed that. I needed a little cheering section of 6 fledgling birds all lined up together going, hello, hi, how are you? It's like, it's
we're here. We love you.
we love you. Don't never mind the humans. Right, there you go. Right. And so the call and response is like the only way to go. You know, Uranus is nature's trickster evolutionary genius. No category about success fail. Other parts of us do. It's like, try that. Nope. Try that. Nope. Try that. Ooh, yes. Oh, I'm all alone. Birds. Yes. Right. Yeah. So.
And then when did you get the puppies?
Oh, the puppies were already in place, which was great. Because I had to go to the woods. Right. I mean, some days I couldn't. I had dog walker. But the vitality of animals. I have 2 splendid kitties and 2 splendid, very opinionated dogs, and and it's a great pack. Yeah.
Oh my God! And how do they all get along with one another?
Oh, that's a good story too. so I had the two very elegant Egyptian cats, right? And I got these rambunctious, rowdy puppies, and they've of course thought of the cats as prey, right? And I'm like, oh, I feel bad. I feel bad. The cats aren't sleeping in bed anymore. So I go, we have to animate the guiding story. And in all esoterica, it's like, you know, answer the question, what do you want? Make it not abstract like world peace or you know, enlightenment. What's the next thing that you want? And I go, well, I do want world peace, but the thing I really want most now is harmony in the house. So every night and morning I would sing this little ditty, right? I'd go, and here we are, Captain Moon and Miss Fox and Kismet Kitty and Amun Ramau and me living in harmony in the witchery. And they were like, okay. And it took 5 months. It took 5 months, but now we have fabulous, they love each other. You know, the dogs lick the cats' butts and the cats come up and rub against them, and they love each other. And so it took a while.
Oh my God, amen, Carolyn, amen.
Right, so
that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, so it's like, that's the thing I wanted most, and then now we go on to other things, right?
Now we can go on to world peace or
right,
whatnot.
exactly, but we needed harmony in the house first, right? Whatever is assigned to us right here, how do we make it more harmonious and collaborative, and still doing that, going, now remember our story, this is our story. And they're like, oh, right, gentle. Right. And then also strong, especially to the guy beings, strong enough to be gentle. I mean, I've used this a lot with animals, you know, bully guys, you know, and I go, no, strong enough to be gentle. And they're like, okay. I've used this with fish in the aquarium. No, we have plenty. Here's our deal. You will have safety and food. You know, we're giving up some freedom and things, but here's the deal. So you don't need to be, you know, and the fish cool out, the dogs cooled out. I had a tyrannical cat that was bullying all the other cats, and I go, he was massive, and I go, strong enough to be gentle, and I would rub him, right? It's like Inanna going, getting drunk on beauty and poetry. I go, you are such a guy. You are such a guy. You are strong enough to be gentle. And the bully became the protector of those whom he'd been oppressing. Yay!
Oh my God, you should go do it to our president.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, that's right. Well, we do what we can. That's right. Yeah, he's fixated by chaos lust at the moment. But yeah, so yeah, well, we work with everything. Yeah, politician whisperers. It's all dog training. Disrupt the obsessive, and then guide. Disrupt, liberate, and then go over here. So you can't just go ninja. You go, hey, over here. Who's a good politician? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Who wants, you know, a Green New Deal? Yes, you do. You know, creating that wave, right? So, yeah.
Well. Thank you so much, Carolyn. So what we're going to do is I'll send you this recording just so you can have, and if you want to use it, you're totally welcome.
Cool.
And then we will get it transcribed. And then do you know JP?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
He's amazing. So he then goes through and edits it down. And I mean, this is so amazing that I'm hoping we'll just include the audio with it as well, so that then we can have the written and then the audio.
Cool. Yeah, that would be great.
I think it would be amazing. And then I'll just send it to you before we make it public. So if you want any edits or changes or anything like that.
Right. And then send it to me, the Zoom part before you edit.
Okay. For sure. For sure. I will definitely do that for sure. I can do that right now as soon as it downloads.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you so much. Really such an honor to talk with you. Yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah. Right. So, yeah.
Enjoy the day.
Yeah, you too. And take another swim.
I will. I will be thinking of you.
Right. Well, that was the thing I meant to complete, which was the 5 days a week for 5 weeks radiation. You know, again, poor cells who've lost the capacity to cooperate. You know, be gone to the cauldron of oblivion. You know, in my body and the body politic. Right. There we go. That really worked. And then my friend said, you know, to be reborn is the energy to regenerate forests. I'm like, right. So brewing medicine in the underworld, you know, for everybody everybody's trauma is really a dangerous, beautiful assignment to brew medicine for everybody. So yeah, but then when I had the break, I'm like, ocean, I must get to the ocean. Me and the dogs. Okay, can we make it? Yes, we can. And it was one of those things. Once I got into the ocean, it was like, oh yes, this is it. Oh, thank God. Right. The ocean really is. Yeah. So that's why I've been once this summer. I'm going back in August just for 4 days. And then, just, yeah. Yeah.